Incoming transmission, Commander. The words cut through the tense air of the UES Warspite's bridge like a blade. Commander Dorian Kane didn't flinch. His hands rested behind his back, his gaze locked on the colossal Empire flagship Eclipse, looming above Earth like an executioner's blade. The bridge crew held their breath. No one needed to say it. The ship was too large, too well-armed, too certain of its dominance. Its hull shimmered with pulse arrays and a command structure so massive it seemed to warp the distant starlight. The Empire's arrogance made manifest. Kane exhaled slowly. Patch them through. The laser plasma displays flickered to life, bathing the bridge in an eerie glow. A towering figure appeared, Grand Admiral Orvex, his deep-set eyes glowing with a cold, predatory hunger. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 1,000 conquered worlds. "Humans, your defiance ends today." The bridge remained silent. Kane's officers stole glances at him, waiting. He said nothing. Orvex leaned forward, his expression carved from stone. "The Galactic Empire grants you a final mercy. Surrender, and you will live as subjects under our rule. Resist, and your world will be raised." The words hung in the air, stretching the tension to its breaking point. Kane tilted his head slightly. Then, with a voice so even it could have been mistaken for boredom, he replied, "No." The silence that followed was absolute. Orvex blinked once, then twice. For a moment, the towering admiral looked almost confused. "You misunderstand, Commander Kane. This is not a negotiation." Kane finally moved, stepping forward just enough for his presence to loom over the holo display. His next words were a knife to the throat. "Then stop talking." The transmission cut instantly. No reply. Just empty static. Then, "Hostile energy signatures spiking." Lieutenant Markovich barked, fingers flying across his console. "Their battle group is advancing. Scout frigates moving toward orbit." Kane's jaw set like iron. They wanted war. His gaze swept across the bridge, meeting the eyes of every officer. No fear, just steady, resolute certainty. "Then let's give them one." The bridge erupted into motion. Commands were relayed, warnings fired across the battle net. Laser plasma displays filled with red markers, tracking incoming Empire vessels. The Warspite thrummed with energy as her weapons came online. Across Earth's high orbit, hidden defense platforms began to move. They had been waiting for this. "Sir," Tactical Officer O'Malley called out, voice clipped with urgency. "Enemy fleet composition confirmed, 7 light frigates, standard Imperial formation. They're expecting an easy first strike." Kane's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Then let's disappoint them. Rail batteries, fire at will." In the silence of the void, Earth's guns roared. From concealed orbital platforms and station-mounted artillery, tungsten slugs hurled forward at near-relativistic speeds. The first enemy frigate never had a chance. Its shields didn't flicker, didn't waver. The round hit before the energy barriers could adjust, carving through the ship's bridge like it was made of paper. In a breath, the entire front half of the vessel atomized, sending molten debris tumbling into space. The Empire's ships hesitated, a fatal mistake. Another round, then another. The second frigate buckled mid-flight, its reactor overloading in a silent explosion. "Direct hits," O'Malley called. "They're reeling." The third and fourth ships broke formation, just as the Warspite's missile banks fired in rapid succession. Warheads streaked through space, locking onto the exposed flanks. One detonated just below the nearest frigate's engine block, sending it into a chaotic spiral. The Empire's captains had seconds to process what was happening before another slug tore through their ranks. From his vantage point, Grand Admiral Orvex's expression shifted. The confidence faded. The amusement drained. For the first time, he hesitated. On the bridge of the Warspite, Kane watched. His crew didn't cheer, didn't exhale. Because this wasn't a battle won, This was only the beginning. The Empire would retaliate, and humanity would be waiting. "Status on enemy flagship?" Kane asked. Markovich scanned his displays. "Holding position. No movement." Of course, the Eclipse was too important to risk. Orvex wasn't a fool. He was waiting, calculating his next move. Kane turned toward his officers. "They'll commit real forces soon. This was only their opening hand." O'Malley gritted his teeth. "Sir, if they send the full fleet, we won't fight them conventionally." Kane's voice was calm, but his eyes burned with the fire of a man who had already decided how this war would end. He turned to the laser plasma displays where the tactical map was updating. "Summon the War Council. We move to Phase 2. Admiral Orvex stared at the display. The wreckage of his vanguard force drifted in the void, a silent testament to his failure. Impossible. Humanity was supposed to crumble. Their defenses were supposed to be primitive. Yet his fleet had bled first. A low growl built in his throat as he turned to his second-in-command. "Order full mobilization." The officer stiffened. "Sir, the Grand Council—" "I don't care about the Council." Orvex's voice was death itself. "I will not let this insult stand." His eyes narrowed at the blue and green marble of Earth spinning below. He had given them mercy. Now he would give them war. "Enemy fleet is advancing." The words carried no surprise, no panic, just cold confirmation. Commander Dorian Kane stood at the center of the Warspite's bridge, watching the laser plasma displays update in real time. More ships, bigger ones. The Empire wasn't hesitating anymore. The first attack had shaken them. Now they were coming in force. Lieutenant Markovich's voice was clipped. "Multiple destroyer-class vessels emerging from high orbit, formation tightening. We count 3 carriers and— Sir, the Eclipse is moving." That got Kane's attention. The Empire's command ship never moved unless it had to, which meant Orvex was taking Earth seriously now. Good. "Time until engagement?" Markovich's fingers danced across the console. 7 minutes at current speed." Kane nodded once. "Order all stations. Engagement Protocol Theta. Defense platforms prioritize capital ships. Ground-based artillery prepares for long-range intercepts. Fighters launch in staggered waves." Markovich relayed the command without hesitation. Across the bridge, officers worked with machine-like focus, feeding targeting solutions to the fleet. The Warspite's systems pulsed with activity. The ship's weapons banks charged, railguns loading another volley of tungsten rounds. The battle was about to begin. Far below, on Earth's surface, Colonel Idris Hale stood in a reinforced command bunker beneath the Atlantic Defense Array. The walls trembled as surface-to-orbit cannons adjusted trajectories, massive barrels angling toward the sky. An officer turned from his display, eyes sharp. "Targets locked." Hale gave a simple nod. "Fire!" High above the planet, a volley of hypervelocity rounds ignited the atmosphere. From the Empire's formation, a cruiser buckled on impact. The round punched through its hull, cutting through decks in a fraction of a second. The ship lurched sideways, flames bursting from its engines before it disintegrated into a debris cloud. The Empire's formation shifted immediately. The remaining ships recalibrated, adjusting shields. The Eclipse, still at a distance, didn't react. Not yet. Orvex was watching, measuring. Fine. The Warspite would give him something to measure. Kane exhaled slowly as the Empire's retaliation began. The enemy fleet's lead destroyers fired in sync, lances of energy stabbing toward Earth's orbit. The Warspite's shields flared under the first hit, kinetic dispersal fields absorbing the brunt of the energy. But Earth's orbital defenses weren't as lucky. A defense station erupted in flame, its outer ring shearing away in a silent explosion. Another station buckled under the pressure, its remains scattering into the void. Markovich's voice didn't waver. "Station Delta 4 destroyed. Delta 7 offline." Kane clenched his jaw but didn't look away from the display. Compensate. Platforms Alpha and Beta shift focus. Target enemy flanks. From the debris field, Earth's remaining platforms pivoted. The cannons adjusted their angles, recalculating trajectories. Then they fired. A barrage of kinetic slugs slammed into the advancing Imperial destroyers. The lead ship's shields collapsed under the impact. It twisted violently, then broke apart, its wreckage crashing into another destroyer behind it. The impact set off a chain reaction. Fire spread across the Empire's formation as more ships scrambled to adjust, but the assault had broken their momentum. And in war, hesitation meant death. Kane didn't hesitate. Now! The warspite surged forward, engines flaring as the ship closed distance. Railguns fired in quick succession, tearing into another enemy cruiser. Explosions rippled through its hull before the ship tilted, breaking formation. Across the battle space, Earth's fleet moved in sync. The smaller corvettes darted between enemy formations, their missile arrays locking onto exposed weak points. The Empire was still adapting, still adjusting to a species that didn't fight fair. Orvex's voice broke through the comms, unbidden. "So, you had more bite than I thought." Kane didn't respond immediately. He watched as another Empire ship detonated under sustained fire. Then, finally, "You're still here, aren't you?" A low chuckle. "Not for long, Kane. You think your little ambush is impressive? You think this battle is decided? You don't understand what you're fighting." The line cut. Markovich's head snapped toward Kane. "Sir, multiple new energy signatures just outside the system." Kane didn't need to look. He already knew what was coming. On board the Eclipse, Admiral Orvex stood with hands clasped behind his back. The battle was going poorly, yes. His forces had lost more ships than anticipated. But that was fine. This had only been a test. He turned to his comms officer. "Deploy reinforcements." The order rippled across the fleet. Beyond the battlefield, hundreds of ships emerged from hyperspace. Not frigates, not destroyers. These were warships. Orvex smiled. "Contact! Multiple new enemy vessels inbound." Markovich's voice had a sharp edge now. Kane's jaw tightened. He turned to his officers, gaze unwavering. "This fight just changed," he said. Lieutenant O'Malley exhaled. "Orders, sir?" Kane's expression didn't shift. "We adapt." A deep breath. A slow exhale. His mind ran through possibilities, calculations. A direct engagement wasn't an option, not yet. They had to control the battlefield. "Pull our forces back toward the secondary engagement zone. Give them space. Make them think we're retreating." Markovich hesitated. "And when they follow?" Kane's voice was a blade. "We kill them where they stand." This was never about fighting them head-on. This was about setting the trap. Part 3. The Kill Zone. They took the bait. Commander Dorian Kane didn't look away from the laser plasma displays as the Empire's reinforcements flooded into the system. Hundreds of warships, dreadnoughts, cruisers, carriers, all closing in, their formation tightening into a spear aimed straight at Earth. They thought they had him cornered. Perfect. Lieutenant Markovich's voice was steady. "Enemy forces accelerating. No deviation." Kane's plan was working. The warspite had pulled back toward Earth's secondary defense line, giving ground strategically. The Empire, thinking this was a retreat, pushed harder. They didn't realize they were walking into a slaughterhouse. Kane's voice was firm. "All ships, hold formation. Not yet." Across the fleet, tension coiled like a spring. On board the mid-range artillery ship UES Thunderchild, Colonel Idris Hale watched the enemy fleet barrel forward, completely oblivious. "They're in position, Commander." Kane barely nodded. "Wait." He could feel his officers' tension. The Empire's warships were closing in fast, their energy cannons glowing with the charge of their next assault. Just a few more seconds, just a little closer. Markovich's voice cut through the quiet. Firing range in 10 seconds. Kane's jaw tightened. Not yet. 6 seconds. Enemy warships crossed the invisible threshold. Kane exhaled. Fire! The defense grid ignited. Railguns roared, unleashing tungsten rounds at hypersonic speeds. Ground-based missile silos erupted, launching payloads that streaked through the atmosphere, their contrails marking the sky. Orbital defense platforms unleashed coordinated salvos, targeting critical points in the enemy fleet. The Empire's lead battleship crumbled on impact, its core splitting apart. Another detonated in a firestorm, debris scattering in all directions. The sudden onslaught shattered their momentum. The formation buckled. On the warspite, Kane watched the carnage unfold. His plan was working. Shock and devastation in the first strike, confusion in the second. Markovich's voice was controlled, but tight. "They're scattering, attempting to regroup." Kane's eyes sharpened. "Don't let them." Admiral Orvex stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, watching his forces break apart under the human ambush. This was not how battles with primitive species went. He gritted his teeth. Reform defensive lines, pull battleships into shielded formation. Empire warships began adapting. The chaos started to fade as the surviving ships tightened their ranks. Orvex command ship turned, its weapons locking onto the warspite. Then it fired. The warspite lurched violently, shields flaring as they absorbed the brunt of the impact. The bridge dimmed for a fraction of a second, systems recalibrating. Markovich's voice didn't waver. "Shields at 63%, structural integrity holding." Kane barely reacted. He had planned for this. "Deploy counterstrike, target their formation points." Earth's forces responded with surgical efficiency. Strike craft weaved through the chaos, slipping through the gaps in enemy formations. They unleashed EMP torpedoes, slamming into the Empire's warships and scrambling their coordination. A carrier lost its primary navigation systems and veered off course, colliding with a smaller frigate. Both ships detonated on impact. The kill zone was living up to its name. While the battle raged in orbit, a different fight unfolded in the asteroid belt. Kane had deployed a stealth team to disable an Empire communications relay, cutting them off from reinforcements. Inside the facility, Captain Lorne Voss led his squad through dimly lit corridors, their boots soundless against the alloyed flooring. "Control center ahead," one of his men murmured. Voss signaled a halt, scanning the room. 2 guards, armed but distracted. He motioned, and his team moved like phantoms. The first soldier dropped without a sound, a blade cutting through his armor. The second barely had time to turn before a suppressor round silenced him forever. Voss pressed forward, reaching the primary console. Encrypted data scrolled across the heads-up display. He inserted a bypass module. The screen flickered. "They're running fleet-wide recalibrations," Voss muttered. "They're adapting faster than we expected." The console beeped. Data transfer complete. Then, an alarm shrieked. They'd been detected. "We need to move, now!" Markovich's voice snapped through the bridge. "Commander, the Eclipse is repositioning." Kane saw it instantly. Orvex had changed tactics. The Eclipse was moving out of the engagement zone, repositioning near the asteroid belt. They weren't retreating. They were adapting. And that meant... Kane's stomach twisted. They'd figured out the infiltration mission. He spun toward the comms officer. "Get me Voss! Now!" Static. Then, gunfire. Voss's voice came through, strained. "Commander, we're compromised. Getting to the extraction point now." A deep explosion rumbled over the channel. Kane's grip tightened. He turned to Markovich. "Can we reach them in time?" Markovich's face was grim. "Not before the Empire gets there first." Kane's jaw set. Voss and his team had bought Earth time. If they didn't make it out, their sacrifice would not be in vain. He exhaled, cold focus settling in. "Then we end this." On the Eclipse, Orvex watched as his fleet continued to crumble. Humans fought differently. They didn't behave like a civilization encountering war for the first time. They set traps. They disrupted coordination. They forced chaos into order. And that made them more dangerous than he had ever imagined. His second-in-command turned, voice cautious. "Admiral, our reinforcements are still 2 hours away. We are—" Orvex's eyes darkened. We are not retreating. This was not over. He turned to his weapons officer. "Prepare the Eclipse for full bombardment." The order sent a ripple through the bridge. "Admiral, that will destroy everything." Orvex didn't blink. "Then we burn it all." Markovich paled. "Sir, energy surge from the Eclipse. Kane already knew. Orvex was going to annihilate everything in range, which meant only one option remained. Kane's voice was ice. "We take out the Eclipse, right now." Markovich's fingers tightened around his console. "We won't get a second shot at this." Kane nodded once. "Then we don't miss." "Fire control. Target the Eclipse's forward arrays. Overload its shields." Commander Dorian Kane didn't wait for confirmation. The moment Admiral Orvex committed to planetary bombardment, he knew there was no turning back. This battle had to end, now. Lieutenant Markovich was already relaying the order. Across the United Earth Fleet, targeting reticles zeroed in on the Eclipse, the Empire's flagship. Weapons officers primed plasma lances, railgun slugs, and kinetic bombardment payloads. Every warship locked on. The next salvo would decide everything. A coordinated volley ripped through the void. The first wave of tungsten slugs shattered against the Eclipse's outer defenses. Shields crackled, absorbing the kinetic punishment, but they wouldn't hold for long. A second barrage followed, this time from planetary artillery. A salvo of superheated ion spears lanced upward from Earth's surface, searing through the night like vengeful stars. The first wave struck the Eclipse's starboard armor, leaving gouges in its hull. The third volley was delayed just enough to exploit the weakening shields. Humanity's greatest trick, timing. When the final plasma bombardment struck, the Eclipse lurched. For the first time, the Empire's flagship staggered. Markovich's voice cut through the tension. "Direct hit! Shields fluctuating! They're shifting power to compensate." Kane's eyes narrowed. Not good enough. "Hammer them again! This time, concentrate on the port stabilizers." On the Eclipse, Admiral Orvex held his ground as his flagship rocked from impact. Warnings flashed across the command deck. The humans had dealt real damage, but it wasn't enough. "Charge the planet killer array. Full power." His second-in-command hesitated. "Admiral, we've lost shielding over Sector 5. A full charge could—" Orvex's glare silenced him. "Do it. Earth burns. Now." A deep vibration coursed through the ship as the planetary bombardment array drew energy. Massive power conduits siphoned from the Eclipse's core reactors. The price? All remaining defensive shields rerouted to weapons. For a split second, the Eclipse was vulnerable. And Kane saw it. The moment Kane noticed the Eclipse rerouting energy, he knew they had one shot. "All ships, concentrate fire on the primary reactor housing. Now!" The order spread across the comms. The fleet moved as one. From the Thunderchild, long-range ballistic missiles launched in rapid succession, aiming for the exposed sector. From the Warspite, plasma artillery ripped across the divide, striking deep into the Eclipse's midsection. The first wave struck armor plating, the second wave punched through. And then, a direct hit to the reactor housing. The Eclipse shuddered violently. Bridge consoles flickered. Internal stabilizers failed. Inside, alarms screamed warnings. Orvex's command deck plunged into chaos. "Admiral, we've lost reactor control! The core's destabilizing!" Orvex's eyes darkened. "Redirect power! Regain control!" But it was too late. The reactor imploded. A chain reaction ripped through the Eclipse's spinal structure. The battleship buckled, twisting in on itself. Internal explosions burst outward, rupturing its hull like shattered glass. For the first time in recorded history, the Empire's greatest warship was dying. Orvex stood frozen, his bridge collapsing around him. He had never considered defeat. Now, defeat was consuming him. "Abandon ship!" someone shouted. Escape pods launched like fireflies. Crew members deserted their posts. But Orvex stayed. His empire had never lost before. He refused to be the first admiral to surrender. So he did what the Empire always did. He burned with his ship. The final explosion ripped through the Eclipse's core, consuming the bridge. Then, silence. The Eclipse, pride of the galactic empire, broke apart. Chunks of burning wreckage spiraled into nothingness, a supernova of ruin and humiliation. On the war spite, no one spoke. The crew simply watched. The Empire's greatest warship was gone. The fleet stood still. Then, one by one, Empire warships began retreating. Some jumped to FTL instantly. Others turned tail and limped away. Markovich's voice broke the silence. "They're running." A wave of stunned realization spread across the bridge. They had won. But Kane didn't celebrate. Not yet. "Are there any enemy ships still advancing?" His voice cut through the moment. A pause. Then Markovich exhaled. "Negative. We're clear." Kane finally let himself breathe. Across the fleet, the comm channels erupted. From Earth's surface, the United Earth Council sent an official broadcast. From every warship, pilots, officers, and gunners roared in triumph. Even battle-worn veterans who had seen too many fights allowed themselves to hope. They had done it. The Galactic Empire wanted war. Humanity said okay, and now the stars belonged to them. The comm officer turned. "Commander, we have an open channel to the remaining Empire forces." Kane stepped forward. He didn't gloat, didn't sneer. Instead, his voice was calm, cold, unshaken. "To the remnants of the Galactic Empire." He let the words hang. "You came here expecting submission. You thought you'd break us." A pause. "Instead, you've learned what it means to challenge humanity." His eyes hardened. "If you ever return seeking war, know this. Earth will not just fight. Earth will win." The transmission cut. Across the battlefield, the Empire's remaining ships fled. For the first time in history, the Galactic Empire hesitated. And the stars, once silent witnesses to 1,000 conquests, now whispered of humanity's rise. The Eclipse was gone. The mightiest warship in the Empire's fleet, reduced to burning wreckage drifting into the void. But the war wasn't over. Not yet. Commander Dorian Kane watched the retreating Empire ships on the laser plasma display. Across the fleet, signals poured in. Celebrations, war cries, disbelief. Humanity had struck the greatest empire in the galaxy and won. Yet Kane's hands remained still, clasped behind his back, his expression unreadable. Markovich turned to him. "Sir, orders?" Kane didn't hesitate. "Prepare for counteroffensive. We hit them before they regroup." The bridge crew stiffened. Markovich frowned. "Sir, we just won." Kane's gaze didn't waver. "Then let's make sure they never try again." The war room inside the UES Warspite was alive with movement. Officers fed fleet data, casualty reports, and real-time enemy movements into the central console. A three-dimensional display of the Sol system flickered in the air, showing tactical positions shifting by the second. "Enemy reinforcements detected outside the Oort cloud," an analyst reported. "No clear chain of command. Their formations are sloppy." They weren't ready for this war. Kane knew they had to act before the Empire stabilized. He turned to Admiral Devereaux, overseeing Earth's strategic response from the United Earth Council's command center. "We push forward. We take the momentum. If they're reeling, we don't let them breathe." Devereaux folded his arms. "This isn't a battle, Kane. This is the aftermath. We don't need to chase a broken fleet." Kane's jaw tightened. "If we stop now, we give them time to rebuild. We need to cripple them, not just win." End them. The war room fell silent. Devereaux exhaled. And if we push too far, Kane met his gaze. Then we finish what they started. Across the Earth fleet, human warships turned from defense to pursuit. No hesitation, no second chances. The Warspite led the charge, flanked by the Thunderchild and UES Dauntless. The plan was simple: cut off fleeing Empire forces at the Kuiper Belt. Target command ships, leave the rest to scatter. Humanity wasn't taking prisoners. On the Empire's warship Ashkar, remnants of Orvex fleet scrambled for leadership. Commander Valek, once third in command under Orvex, found himself staring at a fractured fleet. On his heads-up display, reports flashed in quick succession. The Eclipse, destroyed. Command structure, collapsed. Fleet cohesion, non-existent. And now, human ships were coming. The Empire's forces weren't used to retreating. They weren't built for panic. Valek clenched his fists. The humans had humiliated them, and that could never be allowed to stand. Form up defensive perimeters. We stand and fight. His officers hesitated. Sir, we're not in formation. Valek's voice dropped. Then get into one. But it was already too late. The first human ships arrived. The Warspite led the attack, railguns and plasma arrays lighting up the void. Kane watched from the command deck as Empire warships staggered under the onslaught. Their formations barely held, disorganized, fractured. Valek had wanted a last stand. He got one. Target their thrusters first. Leave them stranded. Kane's voice was ice. The first wave of tungsten slugs struck, rupturing Empire battlecruisers at their engines. Fires burst from venting conduits as crippled ships spiraled out of formation. The humans were choosing their targets carefully. Not just killing, strangling the Empire's will to fight. On the Ashkar, Valek knew the battle was lost. His fleet was falling apart ship by ship, but surrender? Impossible. He opened a fleet-wide channel. This is Commander Valek. The Empire does not kneel. If we fall, we take them with us. Charge the last warships forward. A slow nod of understanding spread across his remaining captains. They would die for the Empire. On the Warspite, Kane observed the desperation. They're trying to ram us. Markovich's voice was tense. Kane nodded. Let them try. He keyed into fleet comms. All ships, hold position. Let them come. Then, finish it. The Empire's last warships surged forward. Humanity waited. Then, at the last moment, the fleet opened fire. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Empire ships shattered one by one, ripped apart by focused fire. The Ashkar was the last to go. As its bridge erupted in flames, Valek whispered his final words. For the Empire. Then, silence. The last Empire ship fell. On the Warspite, the bridge crew exhaled. Markovich sat back, voice low. It's over. Kane didn't move. No, he said quietly. His eyes remained on the wreckage. Floating bodies, destroyed warships. It wasn't just a victory, it was a lesson. And he knew the galaxy had learned it well. The United Earth Council sent out a final broadcast. Kane delivered it himself, to every surviving Empire world, colony, and fleet. His voice wasn't triumphant. It was warning. This war is over. Humanity does not seek conquest. We do not demand tribute. But if the Empire ever raises its hand against Earth again, we will take that hand and we will break it. The transmission cut. Across the stars, the Empire fell silent. For the first time in history, the Galactic Empire feared something. Humanity. The war was over. But the silence that followed wasn't peace. Commander Dorian Kane stood on the bridge of the UES Warspite, eyes locked onto the drifting wreckage beyond the viewport. Empire warships, shattered and lifeless, floated like remnants of a dead age. But he knew better. The Galactic Empire wasn't dead. Not yet. Markovich broke the silence. No distress signals, no counterattacks, just nothing. Kane exhaled slowly. They're waiting. Devereaux's transmission appeared on the laser plasma display. The Admiral's expression was unreadable. The United Earth Council wants a full stand-down. They're calling this a victory. Kane didn't blink. It's not. Devereaux didn't argue. He knew the truth just as well. This wasn't an ending. It was a reckoning. Across the Empire's remaining territories, chaos erupted. Regional governors, once loyal, now grasped for control. Military outposts fell silent. Entire star systems declared independence. For the first time in thousands of years, the Empire wasn't invincible, but Kane wasn't satisfied. Because survivors talk, and the wrong survivors would turn this into a rallying cry. Inside the Warspite's war room, the tension was thick. Officers gathered around the three-dimensional map of the Empire's remaining forces. Devereaux's voice was clipped. What you're suggesting is annihilation. Kane's jaw tightened. What I'm suggesting is an end to this war. No loose ends. Markovich hesitated. Sir, if we cripple them any further, there won't be an empire left. Kane met his gaze. Good. Because unfinished wars always come back. The Earth fleet moved in silence. A select task force, not to conquer, but to dismantle. Their targets: military production facilities, Imperial shipyards, strategic fuel depots, no civilian centers, no wanton destruction. This wasn't conquest, it was surgical. Kane led the first assault personally. Their target, Hakon Shipyard, one of the Empire's last functioning dreadnought facilities. The Warspite's stealth corvettes slipped past the outer patrols, hugging the blind spots in Hakon's orbital defenses. Inside the corvette's briefing chamber, the strike team readied their weapons: kinetic rifles, pulse grenades, hacking modules. Kane checked his sidearm as the lights dimmed. Markovich's voice was calm. Touchdown in 60 seconds. Kane glanced at his men. No speeches, no heroics. Get in, destroy their capacity, get out. A sharp nod from every soldier. The hatch doors opened. The strike team moved like ghosts through Hakon's industrial corridors. Engineers barely noticed them before silenced rounds dropped them. Kane signaled to Carrick, his demolitions expert. Set charges along the primary foundries. We cut their war machine apart from the inside. Carrick gave a tight nod and got to work. Markovich motioned ahead. Security station. If we breach it, we take their defenses offline. Kane checked his sidearm. Move! They were halfway through the facility when the alarms blared. A squadron of Imperial guards rounded the corner, weapons raised. Shots erupted in both directions. Kane dropped behind a reinforced storage crate, pulse rounds slamming into metal. Markovich pulled a soldier behind cover. They weren't supposed to detect us this fast. Kane grimaced. They were learning. Doesn't change the plan. He broke cover, firing 2 clean shots. An Empire guard collapsed. The others faltered. It was all Kane needed. He signaled to Carrick. Set off the first charge. A detonation rocked the shipyard. The overhead lights flickered, sirens wailing. The Empire soldiers hesitated, just for a moment. And that was enough. The strike team moved. Kane's radio crackled. Charges placed. Shipyard stability compromised. We need to go, now. Markovich's heads-up display flashed red. New contacts. Empire reinforcements inbound. Kane exhaled sharply. No escape route ever survived first contact. He pointed toward a docking bay. We take an Empire transport. Disguise our exit. Markovich's expression was unreadable. That's suicide. Kane smirked. Only if they recognize us. The team hijacked an Empire transport in seconds. Markovich forced the radio to loop old clearance codes. Kane sat in the co-pilot's seat, watching the flames consume Hakon behind them. Empire patrols swarmed the burning shipyard, too focused on containment to scan a single fleeing vessel. Markovich let out a breath. We're in the clear. Kane didn't celebrate, because he knew. The Empire wasn't dead. But soon, it would be. Back on the Warspite, Kane stood before a final transmission, a message to the surviving remnants of the Empire. His voice was calm, measured. You are beaten. Your war machine is shattered. Your empire is dust. A pause. Earth does not seek control. We will not conquer. We will not occupy. Another pause. But if a single world, a single fleet raises its banners against us again, we will not hesitate. The transmission cut. Across the stars, the last embers of resistance flickered out. The Empire was gone. Its fleets were scattered, its rulers either dead or in hiding. What was once an unstoppable war machine had collapsed in on itself, leaving behind the wreckage of a shattered dominion. But wars don't end when the last shot is fired, and Kane knew it. From the bridge of the UES Warspite, Kane watched as the stars stretched before him. Beyond Earth's borders, entire systems were turning into war zones. Former Empire territories splintered into factions. Some clawed for power, others simply fought to survive. Markovich stood at his side, studying the incoming reports. Every major system under Imperial control is in total collapse. Kane didn't look away from the viewport. And every warlord with a fleet is about to see how much of the galaxy they can carve up for themselves. Markovich exhaled. So much for victory. Kane's grip tightened behind his back. Victory isn't survival, and survival isn't peace. And the galaxy was far from peaceful. The Council of Free Worlds, a loose alliance of independent planets, was already moving in. They sent a transmission, the laser plasma display flickering to life with the sharp features of a Xandari diplomat. His voice was clipped, professional. Humanity has struck the killing blow against the Empire, but what follows is as much your responsibility as the war itself. What will Earth do? Kane's response was immediate. We're not empire builders. We're not conquerors. The diplomat's gaze was sharp. Then what are you? Silence stretched, and Kane didn't answer, because the truth was unclear. To some, Earth was the savior of the galaxy. To others, a dangerous, unpredictable force. News feeds ran constant speculation. Humanity destroyed the Empire. Can they be trusted with the power vacuum left behind? Are we looking at a new dominant force in the galaxy? Will Earth interfere with the rebuilding of Imperial territories? Kane turned off the display. People feared what they didn't understand. And right now, they didn't understand Earth. A transmission came through, encrypted, originating from deep within what was left of Imperial space. Markovich frowned. You want to take it? Kane nodded. The screen flashed to life. A figure appeared, a face marked with old scars, his uniform still bearing the insignia of the Galactic Empire. His voice was calm, steady. Commander Kane, I am Lord Vorthos of the Imperial Remnant. I would have words with you. Kane studied him. If you're looking for a surrender, no. I seek an end. Kane didn't respond. Vorthos continued. You are a warrior, Kane. You know this war isn't over. You shattered the Empire, but you did not kill it. Kane's jaw tightened. I know what I did. Then you know what comes next. You can leave the galaxy in chaos, or you can shape it. You fought to end tyranny, but without order, there is only war. Markovich muttered, He's making a play. Kane nodded. A damn good one. Vorthos watched him carefully. We need structure. You can help rebuild, or leave this galaxy to ruin. Kane exhaled slowly, because the war was supposed to be over. And yet, the choice before him could change everything. The Council of Free Worlds wanted to form a democratic coalition. The Imperial remnants wanted to rebuild under new leadership. And Earth? Earth had no interest in either, but they couldn't just walk away. Kane stared at the map of the fractured galaxy. If they left now, the war would never truly end. If they stayed, Humanity would become something it never wanted to be. Kane gathered the War Council, Devereaux, Markovich, Admiral Kairos. They debated for hours. Finally, Kane stood, his voice firm. "We're not staying. We're not ruling. But we're not leaving the galaxy to burn either." Markovich frowned. "Then what?" Kane tapped the map. "We make sure no one else can rise to fill the Empire's place." Eyes narrowed. Kairos leaned forward. "You're suggesting we become an enforcement fleet?" Kane nodded. "Exactly. We don't control, we don't conquer. But any power that tries to rebuild the Empire, we stop it." Devereaux exhaled. "That's a lot of gray area." Kane's eyes were cold. "Welcome to the new reality." The transmission was sent, not a demand, not an order, a warning. "To every world listening, Earth will not rule, we will not govern, but the age of conquest is over. If anyone seeks to rebuild what we destroyed, know this: we will return. And this time, there will be no empire left to rebuild." The response was mixed. Some worlds celebrated. Some feared what Earth had become. The Imperial remnants did not move. They understood the meaning behind Kane's words. This wasn't peace. It was a warning. And for now, that was enough. Kane stood on the bridge, watching the Empire's former capital world shrink into the distance. Markovich joined him. "So, now what?" Kane exhaled. "Now, we wait, we watch, we make sure history doesn't repeat itself." Markovich smirked. "You ever get tired of fighting wars?" Kane's expression was unreadable. "Wars never end, Markovich. They just change shape." The warspite vanished into the black, and across the galaxy, the survivors of the war remembered the name of Earth, because now, Earth wasn't just another world, it was the line in the sand, and no one would cross it again. The galaxy held its breath. The Empire was gone, but echoes of its power still lurked in the shadows. Some factions moved quietly, fearing Earth's warning. Others? They tested the edges. It had been 3 months since the warspite's transmission. And now, a final message arrived. One last enemy refused to die. Markovich slid the report across the command table. Kane read it once, twice, then looked up. "He's alive?" Markovich nodded. "Vorthos played us." Lord Vorthos, the Imperial officer who had claimed to seek peace, had vanished after the war. Now, his fleet had resurfaced, burning through 3 star systems. "He's trying to rebuild the Empire," Kane said coldly. Markovich exhaled. He's not rebuilding. He's taking revenge." Vorthos had taken a fleet of loyalists, dozens of ships. He wasn't fighting for power. He was burning every world that had ever resisted the Empire. His message was clear. "If I cannot have the Empire, I will leave nothing behind." And Earth was on his list. The warspite arrived at the dead system of Jorah IV. The planet had been colonized by independent worlds after the Empire's fall. Now, it was burning. Laser plasma displays flashed red with casualty counts. Markovich's voice was tight. "Vorthos didn't take prisoners." Kane's jaw clenched. "Then neither do we." The warspite led the charge. Vorthos's fleet was waiting. Their ships were scarred, patched together, but they still fought like Imperial loyalists. The battle erupted like wildfire. Earth's forces surged forward. Railguns tore through the enemy ranks, but Vorthos's fleet fought to the last ship. They weren't trying to win. They were trying to kill as many as possible. Kane saw it coming. Vorthos's flagship was no warship. It was a bomb, a suicide ship. Markovich paled. "He's heading for Earth." Kane knew the plan. Vorthos wasn't trying to conquer. He wanted to crash into Earth's surface, a final act of vengeance, a city killer. Markovich's voice was urgent. "We won't catch him in time." Kane's mind raced, and then he made the call. Kane grabbed his comm. Bring us into a collision course. Markovich's head snapped up. Wait, you want to ram them? Kane's voice was steel. We don't have a choice. Markovich hesitated, then nodded. I'll tell the crew. Kane exhaled. Number U, get off the ship. Silence. Markovich stared. Not happening. Kane held his gaze. Earth needs you alive. Get out. That's an order. Markovich gritted his teeth. Then, he saluted and left. The warspite accelerated. Vorthos's ship loomed ahead. Inside the bridge, Kane watched the stars streak past. A message flashed through the system. Vorthos's voice was smug. You're too late, Kane. Kane's reply. Number, I'm just fast enough. Then, the warspite struck Vorthos's ship. The collision split space with fire. Vorthos's flagship didn't make it to Earth, and neither did the warspite. The battle was over. The last Imperial had fallen, and Kane was gone. Markovich stood on the bridge of a new warship, watching the laser plasma displays. A single message had been broadcast before the collision. This war is over. And it was. Earth never took power. It never built an empire, but it made sure one never rose again. No warlords, no dictators, because now everyone knew. If you tried to take the galaxy by force, Earth would stop you. Kane's name became legend. Stories spread through the stars. The man who ended the empire. The man who gave everything to stop the last war. But the truth? Kane never cared about legends. He had only ever cared about one thing, making sure no one ever had to fight this war again. And he had won.